Just like Mob of the Dead, Origins, Shadows of Evil, Buried and Transit, which are all videos I've made so far covering the leaked internal documents from Treyarch, the Eisendrache holds its own secrets. The details and information that Treyarch give about this map in their leaked documents, just in case you for some reason aren't aware, a few months ago Treyarch's developer documents for both Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 Zombies were leaked, giving us a huge insight into the internals of those games' development and what Treyarch's thinking was behind implementing everything that we see in them. We now know why we see the Nectar and Totem building in Transit, why these weird stones in Origins have patterns on them and what they mean. And well, what we've now learned about Der Eisendrache is just as interesting, so let's go ahead and take a look at the secrets of this map. So there's tons of info in here about Der Eisen. A lot of it is stuff that we do already know, or stuff that in my opinion is pretty boring, that won't make for an interesting video. What we want is the juicy stuff, and well, about the narrative of the map, what they were thinking whilst trying to come up with it. They wrote, thematically, Griffin Castle is the twisted sister of the Giant. The year is 1943 and World War II is still going on. The castle is high up on top of a mountain in the Bavarian Alps and is the control centre for the German spaceport situated in the valley below. In the valley, vista around the castle, are the rocket launch facilities that ferry equipment to Griffin Station on the moon, which the Nazis are in the process of building. The castle's main purpose is to be the mission control facility for the rocket launches. All the planning and monitoring of the moon missions happens at the castle. The main banquet hall of the castle serves as the mission control centre. The castle also serves as a research facility for Group 935, so some of the rooms can reflect this and reuse assets from the Giant. Many of the scientists of Group 935 live here or have stayed here at one time during the war. Richtofen, Maxis, Samantha and Fluffy stayed here so we can theme some of the rooms to reflect this. When the Germans lost World War I, they brought many of the ancient artifacts from the dig site featured in Origins to the castle for further research and experimentation. These artifacts are stored in subterranean areas of the castle. So there's a lot in here that we learn that we just don't get through playing the game. In Der Eisendrache's storyline or through the Canorium, we were never fully told what the true purpose of Der Eisendrache castle was. You can kind of piece it together, right? But there was no radios or documents, ciphers, quotes that straight up told us this was the purpose of Der Eisendrache. The Canorium doesn't say it. We are just told it was yet another Group 935 facility. But it was a sister facility of the Giant in a castle built by the Wolf King many years before, situated on top of the mountain. And in the valley below, all of the rockets that we see were used to transport equipment to Griffin Station on the moon. So Der Eisendrache was a mission control facility for these launches. That wasn't its only purpose, it was also a research facility for Group 935. And after 1918, after Germany lost the war, Group 935 brought all of their artifacts they found in Origins with them to Der Eisendrache for further research and experimentation. And what we also have confirmed is, well, we know Maxis and Samantha stayed at Griffin Castle because we can see Samantha's bedroom and all of her toys, but what we also have confirmed is in this fractured universe that Der Eisendrache takes place in, Maxis knew about Griffin Station, whereas in the original timeline, he had no idea that the moon base existed. That was Richtofen's secret project that he kept from him. But in the fractured universe that this Der Eisendrache takes place in, Maxis did know about the moon base. These documents also tell us a little bit about what happened before we arrived at Der Eisendrache. For the atmosphere, they wanted it to be set in the morning, there to be falling snow, a heavy use of blood and gore. Death and devastation is everywhere as a result of the zombie outbreak that started a couple of days before we arrive. Makeshift defences set up by Germans that zombies have broken through. Explosive damage as if some soldiers used heavy ordnance to defend against the zombies. Bodies of German soldiers that have been ripped apart by the zombies litter in the area, some impaled on equipment. Other soldiers, more proactive, have hung themselves with chains to escape a gruesome death and can be seen hanging from the walls of the castle. So just before our characters, Richtofen, Takio, Nikolai and Dempsey, arrive at Der Eisendrache, of course, as with every zombies map, we see dead bodies scattered around. And the reason we see it in this map is because just a couple of days before we came here, the zombie outbreak happened and the Group 935 soldiers were defending the castle against the undead horde, setting up barriers, but eventually they broke through and killed everyone. Well, almost everyone. Some of the remaining soldiers actually killed themselves instead of the zombies getting them. Now, a question that I've always wanted answered in zombies, it was the same with the Cerberus heads in Mob of the Dead, is what exactly are the dragon heads in Der Eisendrache, these stone statues that turn into living beasts? What was Treyarch's thinking and reasoning behind adding them into the map? Is there actually any lore to them? Because we never learn it, it's never told to us. And well, these documents unfortunately still don't clarify anything. But Treyarch do give us a couple of clues. They give these images for reference of other dragon head statues. They wrote there are 3 heads scattered throughout the castle, attached high up on walls. They function similarly to the Cerberus heads in Mob of the Dead. The heads start in a stone state and then animate when a zombie is killed near them. Once this happens, the head comes to life and the stone exterior burns off into flesh. Once the head eats 10 zombies, it then turns back into stone and shatters. So this doesn't tell us Treyarch's reasoning for adding this in, other than it being similar to the quest to obtain the tomahawk in Mob of the Dead. But just going off the references, dragon head statues in castles are actually a thing. The majority of the time they're just there for decorative reasons. So I would guess when the castle was built by the Wolf King, he had these dragon heads put on for decoration. But because they're a part of the Wrath of the Ancients bow, looking at the information Treyarch gave about this in their internal documents, the Bow of Suffering is an ancient relic hidden in the castle for hundreds of years by one of the former residents. It is a mystical bow that, according to legend, appears whenever the castle is besieged. The wielder is able to hold off any army, but in doing so, curses himself. This legend is one of the reasons Hitler wanted the rocket base to be built here, though his occult research team could not find the bow. So the bow, and I will just say, because these are development documents, that means there are probably stuff in here that Treyarch came up with as an idea but never fully implemented into the map, so there's the possibility lore like this isn't actually canon. Treyarch may have changed their mind at the last minute and gone with a different story, but we never actually learn the storyline behind the Eisendrache bows, beside from the name Wrath of the Ancients. So this is all we've got to go off, but it was hidden in the castle hundreds of years ago by one of its former residents, so probably someone else who lived here after the Wolf King, and it was hidden here because whenever the castle was being invaded, it had the ability to hold off an army, but the person wielding it would be cursed. In order to get it, we have to feed the 3 dragons, so could that curse have been tied to the dragons? Was the bow hidden in the castle and then the dragon heads constructed to awaken it and they were imbued with magic? I don't know. And it's also interesting to learn, yes, Hitler wanted the Eisendrache castle as the command center for the moon base, but he also wanted it because he knew of the legend of the bow. Now we know the Nazis were into all kind of occultism, experimenting with teleportation, space-time, ancient beings, aliens, whatever you want to believe, but in the zombie storyline, Hitler knew about the bow, and that was another reason why he wanted Group 935 based here, but his occult research team never actually found it, and we obtain it from the family crypt. We also finally have a proper explanation for the paintings in Der Eisendrache, which are a part of the Wolf Bow quest, but also tell us the storyline of the Wolf King and how his death came. Before, we got this story from the Canorium and just looking at the paintings, but Treyarch actually give a description in these documents as to what each painting is depicting. So the first one is of the king sitting on his throne with his direwolves by his side. The second painting is of the king riding into battle. The third painting, the castle burns and a shadowy tentacle creature lurks in the sky. And in the fourth and final painting, the king is dead. The wolves lay wounded and dying next to him. And that's the one that doesn't make sense, right? Because the painting actually shows the Wolf King and Arthur next to him, not his wolves, and there's no mistaking that Arthur doesn't look anything similar to what the King's wolves did. So it could be that Treyarch originally intended for Arthur to be replaced by his wolves, but later on down the line changed their mind and went with that instead, which I think was the right option to take. It just makes sense when we know in the storyline Arthur, or Leroy as you may know him, was the Wolf King's loyal servant. He buried his bones in Der Eisendrache castle, but it is cool how Treyarch finally described what's going on, or at least what they intended to show in them. Treyarch also explained why in Der Eisendrache we see the Origins Pack-a-Punch machine and not its own unique one, why it's this one specifically. We are reusing the Pack-a-Punch machine design from Origins, as in Origins it has been broken apart into pieces and must be reassembled and activated. The Germans were researching the Pack machine and its technology. They have been attempting to use teleportation to reassemble it, so that finally explains why the Origins Pack machine is also the one in Der Eisen. Similar to other things in Origins, when the Germans lost World War I, they took as much as they could back to the castle, including the Pack-a-Punch machine. Broken into pieces, they took it to Der Eisen and they've been using teleportation to try to reassemble it. You would have noticed as you are playing, unlike other maps, barriers aren't any plain old debris just sitting there blocking your path. They are floating, and in regards to this, in the subterranean areas, the element 115 storage canisters are leaking and the blue 115 liquid covers the floor. Many of the objects in the room are levitating, with electrical current pushing up from the 115 liquid. They wanted to illustrate the anti-gravity properties of element 115, so these 115 canisters we see have cracked open and caused stuff surrounding it to levitate. because that was one of the things it could do. In one of the large rooms of the map, we would like the player to be able to have low gravity jump capabilities. For example, in the subterranean room, the 115 storage containers are leaking and the blue liquid covers the floor. When the player jumps in this room, they have a high lofty jump, a low gravity jump like on Moon or Afterlife in Mob of the Dead. We would like the player to be able to wall run for a limited time. There are special pools of 115 liquid that regenerate periodically in the map. When the player runs through the pools, this allows them to wall run for a limited time. So you can see where they got that idea from. The reason things levitate in the map and the reason we are able to wall run is because of 115's levitational property. We were also told the teleporter in the Undercroft was used by the Nazis to move supplies between the lab and the launch site. This right here, which they call a 115 powered elevator, was a 115 infused space, and the jump pads, again, were more Nazi experiments using 115's anti-gravity / levitational aspects. And then finally, I want to show you something Treyarch were planning to add into Der Eisendrache but didn't. I guess there was no need to in the end, but these were 115 absorbent boots. They could be picked up by the player in a specific location in the castle and would allow us to wall run for a limited amount of time at specific locations. You would have to locate the special boots in a locker within the castle. You would run over 115 charging stations that would instantly activate the boots for 5 seconds. So we were going to have element 115 boots that would allow us to wall run. In the end, of course, we can only wall run in the crypt because of the 115 infused air, but this was their original plan. So there we go. Tons of new information that we never knew before. Storyline stuff, gameplay stuff, which for any COD Zombies fan is intriguing, right? Especially after all this time. So there we go. Like I said, I've done videos on Transit as well, which I think is one of the best ones. Go and check that out. I will leave the link to it down in the description, along with other maps. But if you've enjoyed this one today, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest content on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.